Hey guys, I'm Ace and welcome to Untethered, place where I post guided meditations, messages, etc. Before I start, I just want to say that the way I channel is specific in a way, and I personally don't use tarot cards. I focus and rely mostly on my intuition and guidance that I received through meditations. And I also believe that when you have something random pop into your head, it shouldn't always be ignored. And what I mean by this is that there's this concept, especially in, self-growth and healing community, that your thoughts are not your thoughts. And I agree with that, but there's two different perspectives. Perspective number one is basically your thoughts not being your thoughts. And what I mean by this is you watch a lot of things throughout your day, you listen to a lot of things throughout your day, you talk to different people. There's a lot of things influencing your mind, and especially in today's world, we're overstimulated most of the time. So yeah, when you feel insecure and you have a lot of doubts and a lot of self-criticism thoughts that are sabotaging you in a way, and basically they stem from fear and lack, that's when you definitely should use this first perspective and understand that, yeah, your thoughts are just your thoughts that aren't the truth. And that's basically how this first perspective can be very helpful. But we have other perspective, and it feels like both you and me have been ignoring that perspective. And that second perspective is you're receiving messages. It doesn't have to be, channeling messages necessarily, like channeling messages for other people, but it definitely can be you needing to hear something and, for example, see the bigger picture or, see different perspectives, not just your own. So yeah, the main idea of that part of the message, of this part of the message, is that you need to kind of have multiple perspectives, not in an overthinking way, but just two perspectives that will help you shift and move forward instead of being stuck, okay? And now we come to the main part of this message, which has to do something with your past. So I was cleaning my room, which could be significant for you. Maybe you need to clean your room or have recently cleaned your room. And listen, I kind of hate saying things like these because it's obviously we all need to clean our rooms, and we recently have cleaned our room. So I don't want to give you general messages and be oh, well, if you breathe air, then this message is for you. I don't want to say some obvious things and then just lure people in. But in this case scenario, cleaning a room or space, decluttering, could be really significant. It could be that you are really struggling to clean your space. It feels like something's stopping you. And that could be, something simple as someone calling you and inviting you to go somewhere, and then you're oh, well, I'm just gonna do this thing later. Or it could be that you procrastinate a lot. The message I have about this is that it almost feels like you're trying to just clean your space and do something just for the sake of doing it. You're trying to clean the space, but you're running away from the fact that you also need to declutter. You need to open your wardrobes and your drawers and your desk and throw away things that are literal clutter, old papers, old paperwork, old documents that you no longer need. But also please be careful, don't throw away anything that is, formal and could be used. But just literal junk, throw away things that you will never need again. But as I was cleaning my room, I found a lot of old journals that were my, daily journals a few years ago, that I used every day to write and talk about something and just write in them and do little sketches. And that basically leads us to the main message or the main part of this message today. And as I was opening those journals, I came across a few things that were really hard for me to actually read because it was like some hardships I was going through. But then I also noticed second part of that journal, which again connects us, to the first part of this message about two perspectives. The first perspective I was having, if that makes sense, and the first part of this journal was me like struggling. However, then there was this second part of my journal that was full with a bunch of like inspirational quotes and messages that I have written in the past. And I found this particular like illustration that I drew about like why you can't attract certain things in your life. And I mentioned like stuck energy and stuff. So that could also be resonating. Maybe you feel like you can't attract certain things because of things you're holding on to. And that is like the main point of that illustration I drew. It was basically like someone wanting to attract money or like a better opportunity, but not being able to because they're like so stuck in this like relationship, for example, or something that was, working for them in the past, but isn't anymore. So the main idea is, in order to attract the new thing, you can't keep on holding on to that old thing. Because usually in life as people, we think like, oh, well, once I move, I'm gonna meet new people. Or once I get a job, I will be more happy. Or, once I do this, I will be that. But basically, it's like the universe is saying how that's not how life works. And in order for you to get something new, you first need to get rid of that old thing. You can't just wait for that new thing to come and then get rid of that old thing. It's similar to like, let's use this as an example. You have a friend group and they're your only friends. And they aren't necessarily treating you well. And you are like, well, once I find new friends, I'm gonna drift away from these people because they aren't treating me well. And you're afraid to do it immediately and drift away from them immediately because you're like, then I'm gonna be lonely, right? I'm gonna experience discomfort. But that's what the universe is saying. You cannot get the new thing unless you first make space for it, getting rid of that old thing that no longer works for you. India, there will be a moment of you feeling uncomfortable and uninspired and like scared and afraid maybe, but that's just what you have to do. And you're being called to make that decision. And like, listen, I don't want to do any like delusional takes here and be like, yes, you need to end every relationship and friendship and like move to a whole different country and never speak to your family again. That's not what I'm saying. But there definitely is something specific that even you are aware of. Like there's something specific. It could be a relationship, a person, or an old habit. And like you're very, or like an old job or college. And you're like very aware that that thing is like no longer serving you. But you're waiting. But I'm sensing that unfortunately, I don't think much will change if you just continue to wait and like, not take any action. It feels like you're praying, but you're praying to a wall. Like, I'll tell you a quick little story that just came to my mind, and this definitely could be a message. When I was in middle school, our math teacher told us a funny little story. Someone in my class was like praying to get a good grade, and she was like, I'll tell you a quick little story. There was a man who was praying every single day to win the lottery. Like he was praying every single day, and then God finally answered him and was like, well, buy the ticket. The man was praying he would win the lottery, but he didn't even buy the ticket. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say here. It's really interesting how like I keep on circling like around the main message, but I guess that all of this was important. So yeah, again, it's all about like seeing the bigger picture. However, let's go back to that main part of this message. So I was first reading how like, I was miserable and struggling, and I started feeling a little bit of resentment even, because I was like I was really struggling, like I never want to be like that again. But then I started reading the second part of my journal, which was like a bunch of inspirational quotes and like affirmations, and like also it was full of like gratitude affirmations. So this could be significant, like maybe you should pay attention to that again. Like it kind of sounds like a cliche spiritual thing, like write 3 things in your journal that you're grateful for. However, sometimes we do need to go back to basics. So yeah, as I was reading these, I was like, basically getting the main message. And the main message is, okay, finally getting to the point. You need to understand that who you are today was built. It was slowly built by you. And listen, you might not be fully happy with who you are today, but you definitely should cherish it and honor it because you went through some really hard things. I'm gonna be blunt here. You went through some hard, fucked up things. Maybe even lost a family member, or you were just in this season of your life where it seemed like nothing had worked for you. But even in those moments, you chose to be grateful and show gratitude and show up. But now when you look back at that, let's call it old version of you, you're resenting it in a way. And you're I never want to be like that again. Now I'm so much happier, now I'm so much better, now I look so much better. But that's the thing, that version of you is responsible for who you are today. But I'm saying that in a good way. So you need to show some gratitude and love to that past version of you because it feels like that version of you was, weak and they were miserable, but really they were just so strong. And if they didn't continue to be grateful and show up and do all those little rituals and affirmations, even though they felt silly at the moment, you wouldn't be here today. That's all I have for today. I hope that at least one person found this helpful. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye.